Thank you for viewing this informational video about the airport signs functionality available within Esri's ArcGIS for Aviation. This video is intended to provide a functional overview of the capabilities of the airport signs tools within ArcGIS for Aviation, including examples using detailed step-by-step instructions. Now the first step when we're using ArcGIS for Aviation, we always want to ensure in the ArcGIS desktop environment that ArcGIS for Aviation is installed and licensed correctly. So the first thing to do would be to go to our Customize menu and click on Extensions. We just want to check that our airport's license is installed and checked within this dialog to ensure that the functionality is available to us. The second aspect is to go to just the open gray area at the top of the dialog, right-click, and add the Aviation Airports toolbar. Ensure the tools are available, meaning not only is our software installed, but licensed and ready for use. Now before we get into the dialog itself, ArcGIS for Aviation signage capability is really based on two feature classes. The first is the Airport Sign feature class, which is available within our Airports data model. This contains all of the information about the signs themselves, what their type is, what text is stored on that sign. All of that's stored within that single feature class. The second is what we have labeled here as the Airport Sign _A, which is an annotation feature class related back to Airport Sign. This is going to contain the graphical representations you store within ArcMap to display those signs in a two-dimensional environment. Now, as I mentioned, Airport Sign is part of the Airports data model, but Airport Sign Annotation feature class will need to be created by the user. This is a little bit more complicated than the average annotation feature class, so we've created a help document outlining not only the functionality of managing airport signs and annotation, but you'll notice the first step within this help document is how to set up and create that annotation feature class. It requires two annotation classes which have specific expressions, reference scale, and a few settings using Maplex of how the annotation should be set up. Once you have that annotation feature class created, you can bring them both into ArcMap, and we're going to activate our Manage Airport Signs tool, which is on the very end, the right side of the Aviation Airports toolbar. I click on that and our dialog appears. I've had it docked previously, that's why it shows up on the left, but you can dock it manually yourself as well. Now in the top left of the dialog, you'll notice we only have two settings really. The first is the annotation feature class itself, right? This is where you'll set that annotation feature class. If there's only one within the table of contents, it will pre-populate this for you automatically. The second is setting the front and back annotation classes. Now these are the classes you would have created during the creation of the annotation feature class, and these will represent the front and back of the sign itself. That's really it for settings. It's quite simple. So you notice the dialog is empty, and that's because Manage Airport Signs requires you to be in an edit session before you can use its functionality. So I'm going to start an edit session really quickly here. And the dialog will become active as soon as I select an existing or a new airport sign. So in this case, I'm going to select this airport sign down here with the C6. And you'll notice immediately the dialog is populated with the information. Now I'm going to use the Identify tool on that same feature just to show you there is a complete correlation between the attribution within the airport sign feature class and the parameters as per this dialog. You'll notice things like purpose code and type code up in the top left, they have matching attribution. Purpose code and type code. This dialog is essentially pre-populating the feature for you based on this kind of manual drag and click or select box type functionality. The one that's a little more confusing is you notice you have a front panel and a back panel area in this dialog. And this is where it allows you to control how each of those will appear without any manual data creation. Now how this is stored is basically two parameters, the sign type and the text. So if you notice in the attribution, I have this 0 in a brackets and then a C6 with an arrow. The 0 in the brackets represents the sign type, which you'll see here in the middle of the dialog, and the text is literally the letters, shapes, and symbols that you will show on that sign as well. So from a dialog standpoint, you can completely create and manipulate how your signs will appear directly in this dialog. So let's go do that. I'm going to grab this sign up here, which you notice there's a point feature for, but there's no sign representations around it, no graphics. And you'll notice once I've selected it, nothing is populated in the dialog as well. So in this case, I have a clean slate of how this sign is going to appear and how it's going to populate. So in this case, I'm going to choose my purpose code, which is the runway safety area, and my type code is going to be a location sign. Now for the front of this sign, I'm going to choose a generic sign type, but I'm going to choose runway safety area. Now you notice nothing has happened, but when I click the Add button, it adds that portion of the sign to the panel window, which is up here in the middle. And then on the left, you'll notice I get an immediate preview, which is kind of handy considering I've populated it with just generic information. I want to see how that's going to look. That preview window is quite helpful. Now for the back of the sign, I'm going to do the same thing, except this time I'm going to choose the location sign and give a C6 designator. Now once I've added that, that could be a complete sign, but in this case I want to add more components to that sign so I can kind of chain them together for one feature. So on the second side, I'm going to add a mandatory sign. I'm going to add the runway designator, just 27.9. Now you'll notice now once I've added it, the preview has been updated to show me both components of the sign. Once I'm happy with how my preview looks and how my sign is going to appear, I can quickly just create annotation by clicking the button at the bottom. And you'll notice now my signage appears here on the left. So simply enough, I can just kind of move these around. This is actual annotation, so the feature has been stored in the database. It's been stored in that annotation feature class. So I'm just going to rotate that guy. Move this one up and do the same thing. And there's my signage representation. Now another really cool aspect of Manage Airport Signs is I can modify these as well. So if I go back and select the point feature, if I want to change the ordering of how these appear, I'm just going to use these arrow signs on the right side of the dialog. You notice now I've changed the runway designator before the C6. I'm going to click Update and Apply. And once I hit the refresh on my dialog, you'll notice the annotation changed for me automatically. I didn't need to use update annotation. I didn't need to create new annotation. This is updated for me automatically, basically by refiring the label expression behind the scenes. That's really the functionality of Manage Airport Signs. So you might be asking yourself, I don't have any signage information. I have 0. How do I get started? It's very, very simple, and I'm going to go through almost the exact same steps I just went through with the slight difference of I'm going to create a new airport sign on this side of the runway just by using the Create Features dialog and creating a new point within Airport Sign. Now again, that's a completely blank feature, and you'll notice now that it's selected, my dialog is empty once again. So by following those exact same steps, by choosing the purpose code as well as the type code, I can now go in and choose my sign type, add it to the back, choose my back sign type, use the same runway designator as before, and create annotation. Now immediately those signs are now created in the correct place. So again, I'm just going to move this, quickly rotate it, pointing the right direction. And now I have my signs. Now I can manipulate them and adjust them as I see fit. This is really just a demonstration of how easy it is to get started with managing airport signs. Now with ArcGIS for Aviation, that's not the only thing that's been added in our latest release. I want to briefly show you, if you don't have the imagery for your airfield and you're doing signage plans or marking plans, we have also added default symbology for all of your markings at the airfield. So in this case, I'm just showing you the imagery, but if I turn the imagery off and turn on my markings, as well as some supplementary airfield data, you can see in a graphical environment without imagery, I'm starting to simulate what the airfield might look like, or especially with my signs as well as my marking. This can be really useful in planning purposes or whatever is necessary at your airfield. Now I'm going to stop my editing just to make sure everything's saved within my database, and we're going to move into ArcGIS Pro. Now why I'm going to move to ArcGIS Pro is to show you again how easy it was to not only create those signs, but now with ArcGIS Pro I can symbolize those signs in 3 dimensions without needing any special software, without needing any special skills. In this case, I'm quickly going to refresh my connection to my database that I just edited, and I'm going to add my airport sign feature class. Now once it's been added, I'm also going to change the properties and make sure that the elevation is stored on the ground. Now I'm only doing this for the demonstration. If you're editing your airport signs and you have actual Z values or height values that are associated with them, I highly suggest using those instead of this. But just for this demonstration, let's see what it looks like. I'm going to zoom into the area I just created those signs. So here we are on the end of 27.9. And I'm going to rotate this in 3 dimensions just a little bit. So you see we have a few buildings that have been represented already using CityEngine rules. Now what I'm going to do is apply 3-dimensional CityEngine rules to a 2-dimensional point feature to kind of simulate real life. Now how to do that in ArcGIS Pro, I'm just going to click on my symbol to modify it once, which brings up my symbol dialog. Now with this little structure icon, you'll notice I have symbol layers that are applied. And these can be very complicated or very simple. In this case, it's just a point symbol. Now what I'm going to do is add a procedural layer. And what this procedural layer allows me to do is assign CityEngine rules to this layer within this scene environment. I'm going to remove the 2-dimensional point and then go to my Layers tab and assign the rule. Now we have 2 rules with ArcGIS for Aviation. These are installed as part of the solution. There's the Runway Sign 18C rule package, and this is designed for polygons, as well as the point rule package. Now in this case, designed specifically for points. These have been designed with the FAA's 18C advisory circular in mind, but can be easily modified to match international or other specifications if necessary. I'm going to choose that point rule package, click select, and you'll notice down here in the bottom we have a little preview again. So once again we have our designator and everything that shows up on the back of the sign. All I have to do is click apply, give this a second to draw, and you'll notice now these little signs have appeared in 3 dimensions. Now once again, these signs had no 3-dimensional information about them whatsoever, other than I'm applying a 3-dimensional representation using the rule package that can interpret how the sign structure is. So in this case, that 27-9C6, and if I turn around to the other side of the sign, we have the warnings as well. Now, if you have more advanced users and you have other models available to you, you can start to add buildings, planes, food carts, anything that's around the airfield as well. So I wanted to show you this just because I thought it was kind of neat. We have a Korean Air A380 here as well, right beside some of our signs. Now we didn't edit these, but I thought they were a great graphical representation of what you can see at your airfield, what you can simulate and show your managers for any of your decision making or any of your planning at all. I I want to thank you again for viewing this informational video, and please be sure to check out some of our other videos on GeoNet. If you have any further questions about Esri's ArcGIS for Aviation, please email us at aero@esri.com. That's AERO@ESRI.com. Thank you.